What's going on? Oh, yeah, we're back on second part two record. So we officially, the intro music is ending now. And here we go. So pick it up from last week, Jake. We were going on about the importance of storytelling and engaging the audience and the consistency of our behavior. And what page are you working on? I'm working on page 6 of issue 1 right now.
I am working on page through blah, 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 blah. Let me see. No, this is page 1. Yeah, page 3 of issue 2. And just a quick recap if anybody wants to see. We got
Yeah.
the sequence here, the checkpoint, the giant explosion. We have Turbo escaping behind enemy lines. And then the other page is down here because it got separated from the book. Turbo is young Turbo is jumping into a canister, rolling down the hill, the series of explosions, and then escaping into the burned out city zone where the family pharmacy is here. It's one of the only remaining structures that's still intact and occupied, and people aren't just like hiding out in basements and stuff. And then they're going to be doing the transactions. So I'm just taking a little time here to kind of draw out this glass canister device where they're going to be using the rubber gloves to weigh and measure the potency of the radioactive peas. And then we're about to go into the love scene, or the scene where young Embra, the daughter of the pharmacist,
Frisky Embra,
right? And I was just thinking in my mind, I'm just about to draw her for the first time, and how am I going to draw her? So I think I'm just going to draw her, and however it comes out, and then I'll just have to follow that forever. But I don't know if I think she might only be appearing here on this next page or two, and that could be her swan song, unless we bring her back, in the present day. That's always something we might want to bookmark for plotting out the present day part. And when we say present day, we mean grown up Turbo and the trophy girl. And here we're in flashback scene where we have teen Turbo, who is a smuggler for the orphanage. And so since you got me on it, let's go to the rough notes here. And this is going to be this is actually the scene that I'm doing right now, right? This is how just kind of like you just stitch it out in thumbnails, and you get to it. So we're going to have this. She's going to
just to jump in real quick. It's on my mind is there, like, I keep getting, since she lives in a pharmacy, she has access to a lot of cosmetics, but maybe she doesn't know how to apply them right. I mean, I know this is a black and white comic book, but even if she's a pretty girl, she might have some issues in applying kind of the makeup and the accessories, and I kind of even get the idea or notion of applying the 80s feel for, like, teased hair and the big rouge and the blue eyes, the bright blue eyes, and I don't know, for those types of things. But she could have a structure of being cute, baby doll maybe being cute, but the way she's applying the things to make her appearance more,
well, one thing that I did that I was going to be putting all over the background are like little boxes and little ads, like little posters for for vein cover kits.
Who? Vein
Well,
cover
vein.
kits?
Yeah, you heard me right. So you know how everybody that's not a glower is going to have these veins on their face. So it
Ah.
just stands to reason that the pharmacy would be selling vein cover kits, right?
Ah.
Although it's probably the only, probably the thing that you wear when you're going out or whatever. I don't know. So
Is it
yeah,
like would it be like wearing a mask? You know, like
no, it would just be
a piece
makeup.
of plastic that, a flat piece of plastic that you use to, you know, cover
I mean,
the
you could
veins.
have that. You could have that. I was just thinking it's more like foundation,
Well,
and
the veins themselves are going to be pretty. I mean, they're offset to the face. You know, they're raised off the face. I'm not saying they're going to
yeah,
be 3 inches thick, but
right.
just even powdering, because there's still going to be shadow being cast if you're just, powdering with a foundation color.
Yeah, so well, I get, that will be, I guess, something that we think through,
Yeah.
like maybe some people do, maybe there's even surgery, but in a bombed out wasteland, this is kind of like, a society in decline, and we're taking it like, we're picking up here when things are pretty bad.
Right.
So, like this whole pharmacy is like, showing what it was like when it was operational. I think, the recent fighting has brought us. I mean, Turbo was only 2 years older than the opening scene when they, were busting into people's homes and killing everybody.
Hmm.
So, I guess this is, just, further along in the story, but there's still plenty of reminders of how society used to be. And I was just gonna have these vein cover kits all over the store.
That's
Um, uh, yeah, but yeah, that's a good point too. Like we might have some characters that don't have veins, and they'll maybe they had surgery, or maybe there was maybe you could get deveined, like
like a shrimp.
like a shrimp. Yeah, no, but like no, like varicose veins, right? They
Ah,
do
yeah,
they
yeah,
do that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's really good if you're taking your veins out. How does blood get around? But I don't know. I'm just
Do
into
you
comic book art.
remember the movie Brazil? Terry Gilliam's
Yeah.
Brazil. Remember
Uh-huh.
his mother when he goes to visit his mother at that fancy restaurant, which just basically served up a plate of green mashed potatoes, and then there was a picture on there. She was wearing, and this is sort of where I mean, her makeup was totally caked on. But the better part was, I'm almost certain it was either her or her friend was wearing a shoe for a hat, like a
Oh, nice.
really nice shoe for a hat. And
Right.
that's sort of where I'm kind of picking up this like uh, the continual absurdity of making yourself attractive.
Yeah. Yeah, and Brazil is a great example of a futuristic dystopian,
Oh God, yeah,
society. So
yeah.
so there you go. Yeah. I mean, right, I maybe I'm just like not thinking along those lines enough, but we are going to have lots of unusual characters, and I had this thing where the people have like striped facial hair and
Oh yeah, yeah.
tattoos.
No, that
Yeah.
was I was inking that page yesterday when that dude came up behind Turbo.
Hmm.
And at first I thought it was just like a headband. And then so when I got to the point where I was inking it, I was like, and then the mustache and it ran, I was like, oh, this is so cool. So I don't know if I've done it. I might be asking permission right now. Forgive me if I've already done it. I can white it out. But the way the bands of hair ran, the top band ran all the way around, and then the lip band ran all the way around. But the eyebrows, it broke. But then I was thinking unibrow. like unibrow would be hot.
I mean, if you have it naturally growing like that, otherwise you're you just get what you get, right?
Right,
If
right.
if it's a
No, I
good
love
thing.
it.
Yeah,
I
I
love
mean,
it.
and the hate breeders, I don't know, I kind of had them as skinheads, but maybe we need a visual language for them too, because they're coming up very quickly in this scene where we go back to the present day right here. They're going to be they're in the back of the comic that you're working on, but maybe but we're introducing lots of them, so there could be like the plain skinhead ones, there could be the ones that are more tattooed, there could be those with piercings, there could be all kinds of other stuff they do. And what do we think might happen in the distant future? If this is like 500 years from now, or 1,000 years from now. I hesitate to put a number on it, but
Not
y-
necessary. Not necessary.
yeah,
I
because
I
then
don't.
you're blocked. Well, you might somebody might ask you what year is it, and then
I
like,
don't
I don't know.
care. Yeah. It's 1 billion. No, it's 155 billion years before the sun burns out.
Right, right. It's
That's how I would. That's how I would actually put that. As an answer.
when
Or
Star Wars gives the year, then I'll give the year.
exactly. Well, that's also
Along.
like because you're also dealing with like counter Earth types of things, or counter universe, or obviously another place in the universe. Or what are they with? Yeah, multiverses.
Yeah, well, that's where Marvel is going. I haven't seen the new Doctor Strange where they get into that deep, but I did see Spider-Man No Way Home when with Doctor Strange, is a part of the story of how things get all fractured. And um they bring in the actors from the other Spider-Man reboots, and they have them all together, and and they explain it by saying, oh, there's multiple universes out there,
Yeah,
and in another version I'm Spider-Man, and no, I'm Spider-Man. And
yeah.
that's why, yeah, and that kind of connects to the animated one, right? The Into the Spider-Verse.
Mm, couldn't
um
tell you.
oh, you never saw it?
Nah, not interested.
Oh, really good visuals. No, you should see it just for the visuals. Yes, I know
Yeah.
the story is
How
getting
many?
out there, but
Uh,
they're using this as a handy thing because, and this is something that Denny O'Neil spoke about. In the last episode we spoke about the course in writing comics I took with Denny O'Neil. And he said that DC, when he was there, they had to hire a full-time person that they called the continuity cop.
yep. I
and
heard about
and
this.
his job was to try to reconcile all of these problems, from one team to the next team, trying to make sense of, hey, this happened here, this is out of whack, how do we explain it? And so Marvel, lately, just says, well, it's a multiverse, or it's a separate dimension, and we can do whatever we want, and it
Yeah,
all fits in. And then they have the what if line, what if this happened? What if that happened? So, it's just a way of having artistic license. But, you know, you might have some readers that are like, no, that's cheating, like make sense of
I
it.
mean,
Like when,
that's the crazy part. I don't understand. I don't. I mean, that is fundamentally, until you get a continuity director. The thing I love the most about reading comics in the late 70s, early 80s was exactly that. Like, teams of the writer and artist team would change, and then they would start implementing their stuff, and then they'd write themselves into a corner, and then they'd have to unwrite themselves out of that corner. And that's where true
oh,
creativity
oh,
comes out,
yeah, you just reminded me of a great story that Denny O'Neil
Oh, good,
shared. And
good.
I'm probably butchering this, but he said, he was talking about the early days, of writing, and before comics there was pulps, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
you had all of these kind of like hero characters, and he said, but the reality of it was, they were really exploitive deals between the creators and the publishers. And so what happened was you had this character that was, like a detective character and everything, and he was kind of popular, but the publisher didn't want to pay and was saying, I'm letting you go. And so and he's like, turn in your last script, and that's it, you're done. So the guy turns in his last script, and it's like the hero is hurtling off a cliff,
Hmm.
bound in chains, with the
Get him out of this
poison
one.
coursing through his veins. And the publisher was just going to have some other writer team, some other writer just pick up, from his, marquee character and just, take over from the first guy
Yeah.
because the publisher owns the character. And so, but meanwhile, he turned in the story, and the story, printed like that because like you said, everything's on a deadline. They don't have time
Yeah.
for fixing stuff.
Yeah. No
So,
excuses.
so so they fire the guy, and then nobody is willing to try to write the story. They're like, how do we get this guy out of this literal cliffhanger? And so they hire the guy back, and and Denny O'Neil said it was a triumph of the worker, to preserve his job by saying only, you can't just replace people, you need people, that that understand the character and understand the reader and all that. And so they asked, well, what did he do in the next issue? How did the guy get out of
Yeah.
the? And he goes, oh, he says that was the first sentence. He goes, the hero miraculously escaped.
I love it. I love it.
So
I love it.
and then they're on to the next.
I
Then they're
love
on
it.
to the next
I
sequence.
love it.
So that's so, and people need to realize, when you're watching TV and with some of these series, right? It might just be like a drama, or it might be whatever. When a character is like written out, or when or dies or something like that, it's all about the money. It's all about
Yeah.
the contract. It's all
Yeah.
about behind the scenes. They couldn't come to terms. They pulled the Suzanne Summers. There's all these these backroom things that end up affecting the storyline, and then there's a reason why this character isn't on the screen all of a sudden. you know or they replace Lionel and the Jeffersons, like, that's
So,
not Lionel.
it goes into this space of overthinking things. And then when you overthink fantasy, it's just for me, it's just boring. It's just boring. And so a lot of this stuff that's coming out, and I'm not even talking about like the comic book stuff. It's just really hard to find stuff that really keeps you engaged because everybody in the story is basically screwed unless, you know, and you just sit there and watch, how and to find out how they get out of it. Now, I'm not saying that that has to be it all the time on a heightened level, but I still think there needs to be a challenge placed in the story in order to keep the engagement for not only the people coming to read it, but the artists, you know?
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's just, and it's kind of fun in the way that, we're constantly coming back to the idea of, the interchanging of flashbacks. You have 4 issues written in synopsis form, so you have a decent forward footing, but you're right now at issue 2 plotting each page out, which now once again brings us back to uh, the appearance of Frisky Ember.
Embra, yeah. Yeah, I
Embra.
know that there's so much to do in between a synopsis and and the actual scripting of each page, breaking down each sequence, and and then the dialogue. And it's funny because I'm writing in all the dialogue here, as I do the art. Sometimes that's left for later, and maybe it should be left for later so you can have like a second, like, chance to like think about it and revise it. But I don't know, the way I'm doing it here is I'm just making it part of the art so that maybe you ink it as you go too. I don't know. We'll see as we get later on. I mean, there's still a lot of flexibility, until you actually ink stuff. There's still flexibility, but there are times where you need to go back in and change some dialogue and you know, we're gonna rename somebody, so we have to go back all the way to page 3, stuff like that. Um, and I don't know, I'm just kind of like pouring it out on the page as I go. So
It would be interesting because you said, with Ember, um, that she might not even have like a page and a half worth of life, but if her appearance sort of has like a trend applied to it, like another character comes around and she's wearing a shoe on her head, if that's like, if that's kind of the point and stuff, then it brings it over into the um, uh, world building sort of like
y-
structure area. So without telling people it's this time or it's related to this or it's in this country or city or blah blah blah, blah, the elements that just keep being repeated um, be, become the necessary elements to keep informing where and what and why are things happening.
yeah, I mean, Ember is going to represent a love interest, or maybe just like a first kiss or something. But
But do you
that
think of her as like somebody who's representing the youth at that time, like the adolescent or whatever, the teenager who's rampant
well,
hormones and
this
trying
is
to
as
get away
much.
from mom and dad.
Yeah, she's definitely got, yeah, well, she feels trapped, she's been in, for her own safety, she's been inside this building, forever. They live there and it used to be their business and there's nowhere to go. And, they have some supplies and so they're able to trade and they're able to, to survive. And we haven't really explained why they haven't just been attacked by somebody, and just looted or ravaged or anything. But
Yeah.
the fact that they have cameras everywhere, alludes to, they have this like security protocol, and they have all these radioactive, Ps, which means that they could very easily have defenses. They could have, I mean, they're the ones that are supplying the weapon, right?
Yep.
So it could be that they're, I just kicked out my core. They could be the one that invented the weapon, or they could just be like, uh, a trader, a fence or a go-between. Ow! I just crashed my skull. Um, but here's as much thought as I given for Embra. I just visually, I just kind of stitched her out with glasses and kind of like a bippy top and some shorts. So
Okay.
I didn't think it out, and now you're putting all these doubts in my mind that I really need to
Ah, it's not doubts.
conceive
It's
of
just
her.
just right,
I need to
right. But
I need to think it like a little bit more through than just this, right? Otherwise, we're gonna have the green Scarlet Witch here. I mean, yeah. So
as they
I'm
say,
listening.
devils are in the detail.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I'm right here, right now. So if
Hmm.
if you have a suggestion, I'm all ears. But and and I'm hearing what you're saying. Like, if she's like got the you know accessories of like a different generation from her parents or something.
Well, it
Uh,
just kind of backs it into the facial um, disformity of the normies, um, where you're still having to go through the growth scenarios. So then you also have, what does it look like, if you've lived 90 years with this, And you have wrinkles. You're not going to
Mhm.
obviously see the now there's wrinkles on top of your veins. So like, what
Right.
is that? Here, this is a very young, you know, the baby fat teen. And then you have these vein removal packets. I think something that, even if it's like stickers or patches, where they're just cut out shapes, or just
There you go.
something. You
There
see
you
what I
go.
mean? Where it's like,
Yeah.
and when I say cut out shape, please don't make it into an intricate bunny or tiger or lion. Like,
Well,
it's just,
now you got me thinking about
like one's
Gene
a
Simmons.
circle. Yeah, one's
Yeah.
a circle and the other one's a hexagon, and it's just, and then one would be blue and one would be green. And now we're just talking in the visual sense that, it's somebody who's vain, who's obviously young, and and then there's maybe even down the road where somebody is using it as cover, as a glow. So if you're wearing the patches, then
Right.
vein removal kit, or however it is, then you're getting somebody who's trying to get subversively through, whatever it is that they want to get into, by playing the role of somebody who's,
Well, she's gonna
you know,
recognize that Turbo's a glower, immediately.
which is probably the attraction, right?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
Right.
On top of everything else, on
Right.
top of the
This is,
hormones
yeah.
and the cabin fever,
Right.
right? So yeah, I mean, but that's right where I am now.
Cool.
Um, so yeah, and I don't know. I just now I have a lot of pressure.
Good.
Be, but
Because we need to. We're
I
making
did
a
I think
badass comic.
I think she's just like, she's a throwaway character, but also, she is very representative, and you know, um, of where the story's going. So I got to draw her right now, and I'm
Go.
trying to draw everything but her, drawing the
All right,
cases,
everybody,
the
everybody,
wall.
everybody, please be quiet. Just please be
Right,
quiet for
right.
a second. Everybody, shh. Let Jake draw.
Yeah, they're here in the bunker. No, so yes, and just to like jump ahead a little bit, I didn't get very far in the plotting out here, but we're going to finish up the flashback, and then we're going to yeah, we're going to get to the part where the orphanage is under attack. The church
Yep.
orphanage is under attack. It's a fake church. It's really a whorehouse. In and it became a church, after the war. Um, but yeah, where I'm at here in the breakdowns is just kind of the attack on the good humor van, and they're just going to be doing jumping on top of the van. It's just going to be fighting. This is going to be, and this is what Denny O'Neil also said. He says, like, you really you really have to deliver. And if you're doing a superhero comic, or sci-fi or something, you need, people need those fight scenes and that action, and they want to see, same thing with a movie. They're looking for action. Whether it's choreographed, fisticuffs, or whether it's weapons, or like dogfight over the Pacific. That's what that's the formula. Like, that's how to deliver, and everything else is just like story to carry it. And he explained the MacGuffin. You know what the MacGuffin is
Yeah.
in a story? Yeah. He
Hmm.
he he said the perfect example of the MacGuffin was the Maltese Falcon.
Yep.
Right. It's this, classic movie where everybody's looking for this this falcon sculpture, and everybody's killing and fighting over it. Everyone's trying to get the MacGuffin. So the MacGuffin is, what is the object at hand that everybody's in pursuit of, that has some intrinsic meaning to the characters, but in terms of the script writer, it's just a device that's used to get you, motivation. You need some motivation. We've got to get the MacGuffin. We've got it. And so we have ours here. I mean, every story has them. You know, in Avengers Endgame, it was the rings, you know, and the Tesseract, you know. I mean, to me, that was kind of corny. Like, oh yeah, so now they're just gonna put on all the rings and snap your fingers, and then half the people in the world die. Okay, or half the people in the
Yeah.
world are, you know, just brought back. Okay. You know, to me, that I really abhor like stories like that, where like you know Superman picks up Africa and flies it. You know, I mean they've actually done that. I mean, you know, like a continent, they've actually done that. Or when Superman flies around the Earth to make time go backwards. Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Wouldn't that just like destroy the Earth? I don't
But
know.
but
Just
but but Jake, that was for Lois.
that was right for one woman, right? Just you know, so
But that's love. But that's love.
exactly. So right, you know what I'm saying? And then I, you know, I felt like that's exactly where Wonder Woman went in the second movie. You know, to my shock and dismay, you know, they're like, "Oh my God, we're gonna make her fly like a golden goddess." And you know, what about like she's supposed to have the airplane? Like, you know, she has a certain prescribed power, and that's not it. Like, what are we doing here? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
and that's also why I hated Shang-Chi. I don't know if you saw that, but, you know, Shang-Chi was
Nope,
not the
nope,
comic that I knew. The
nope.
award-winning comic with written by, Doug Moench and drawn by Paul Gulacy that made it look like Bruce Lee, and
Mm-hmm.
the characters were I mean, what a great comic. You know, people ask me, "What's your favorite Marvel comic?" And mine was the same as Denny O'Neil, Master Kung Fu. They had such a long run. They probably had, like, 40 issues in between like you know the 20s and the 50s or 60s, where it was all written by the same guy and it was all drawn by the same guy. It was a great style. The writing was intense. It was like you know it was laden with duality, you know, which I love. And it was you know compelling characters and compelling action scenes and compelling storylines. And they had actually licensed the the uh the characters of Sax Rohmer, who invented Fu Manchu,
Yeah.
and that was Shang-Chi's dad. But this new Marvel movie, no, it was you know they lost the licensing. They had to give back the licensing, so they no longer can use the Sax Rohmer characters. And I don't know what's happening with them. I don't know if they're making a book or a movie or if anything's happening with it, but they just refused to let Marvel use it after a certain issue. And they had to change Fu Manchu's name to like some other Chinese name, you know, and right in the middle of you know, it was after the good team was off the comic. It was, you know, I think it was even after the Mike Zeck years where he did such a good job taking over for Paul Gulacy on the art. But, they lost the licensing and they had to change the name, and so now that they're making that into a big Marvel blockbuster, they blew it. The Sax Rohmer estate should have kept it with Marvel. What the hell were you thinking?
Yeah.
You could have gotten some money, or you could have got, you know, I don't know if there was like any, you know, that's probably it. It was probably over the money, but that was back when we're talking about worthless comics, you know, relatively worthless comics. And so, you know, the movie is a lot of money. So, long story short, you know, I did not love, you know, my students liked the Shang-Chi movie. You know, it had a lot of action or, you know, it had a lot of like magic and, you know, real imaginative sequences, but I hated it because I knew the real story, you know, and that they were so good. All they had to do was take any one of those comics and make that into a movie, or you know take like a five-story arc. And they had you know all the greatest characters. They had Shang-Chi, they had Blackjack Tar, they had Falu Sui, they had Clive Reston, who was like a Bond. You know, he looked just like James Bond, you know. And man, it was just you
Well,
know
that
it
whole thing, the Masters of Kung Fu came out, I think, right after Enter the Dragon.
yeah
So in that whole island and the cast of all the multiple characters and the mysterious background, because the the master of the island that runs the karate tournament. You know, he had the claw hand or the interchangeable hand, and it was just, I think that sent such
Ripclaw.
shockwaves.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ripclaw. Right, and
such
they had a
shockwaves.
guy on the they
It
had
was
a guy in the
just,
movie that had like a hand thing. He had a
mhm,
blade for a
yeah,
hand. That was
yeah,
about it. But
yeah.
the problem with the movie, they gave him all these powers. They gave him magic powers to like do, pretty much anything, and the
Mm.
enemy had powers too, and he was being trained by a woman who had powers, and I don't know. I mean, the one nice thing was that he had the girlfriend who was that Asian comedian. I don't know her name, but she's kind of funny. I think she's on some series called
Mm.
Aquafina or
Mm.
something.
Mm.
And so she was good, but then like their relationship was never really like clear or consummated. Like they were they friends or were they more or because she was not she's not like your drop dead leading lady. She was more like the comic relief. But I guess they probably made a lot of money. They're probably making another one. Um, it was just like I'm a purist, and I believe that they should make I Marvel, if you're listening, take the comics, just make it into a movie as faithfully as you possibly can. And it's not just because like old timers remember it. It's because those are great stories, and you're doing too much. Like you can't have so many magic powers. That's boring after a while. It's corny. It's like Superman. I hate Superman. Superman has too many powers. And like so basically you can never fight like 99% of anybody, and you need a villain that is so catastrophic that every issue is got to be an epic, and that gets boring after issue. So that rant over, but you know but there you go. And I do want to comment on some of these Marvel movies because I think some are better than others. And I'm hoping, I mean, these are comic book guys that are out in Hollywood making these movies. This is like Joe
Yeah, but
Kid.
they're all, the problem everybody's saying is that these movies are made by subcommittees. You know, these aren't even there's writer rooms. There's they just they very much overthink. Going back to comic books from the 70s, and the 80s that we're really attached to, because these things had to come out. You had to just do something, and
Yeah,
then the fans would tell you in their letters, um, and they're still dropping mad cash on these things, and they need to see not only a turnover and profit, but it's all sequential. There's sequences, serial,
there's phases, right?
but I still think the only thing that might be magical at some point, year or two, maybe more down the road, and these universes, Marvel, DC universe, comic book stuff, is when they start having to deal with kind of like, we can't run um, a Doctor Strange and Thor anymore. They're just too expensive. We lost the leads of them, lead actors. So what we'll do is, and that for me would be way more interesting, if you just took two new actors and replaced the characters as the leads, and then you stick them together, and it's Doctor Strange and Thor, and you run a
Well,
series on it.
you
I
mean
mean,
like,
you don't have to lean on anything that we grew up with or anybody else grew up with, and
yeah,
you
but
can
you're
actually
talking.
use the comic book artists, and then blah 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 blah.
No, 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 they're not going to do that on TV. You're talking about like
Mm-hmm.
Netflix or something. I mean, they're
Mm-hmm.
doing exactly that. They're doing it with Shield, and they're doing it with Iron Fist, and they're doing it with Power Man, Luke Cage. You're doing it with they did it with Daredevil, and Daredevil was a rare example because it really got people. It worked, but they couldn't sustain it for more than like a couple of seasons. Um, what I would love to see as technology advances is I would love to see these things go to animation, you know? Like, and that's why I need you to see the Spider-Verse thing because, it was a new kind of like blending of computer animation and cell animation. Um, and they kind of excused all of the mishmash of styles, by saying, well, this is a Spider-Verse, we broke the fabric of time with this, Tesseract thing, and therefore anything goes, and we're bringing in the Spider-Man from another universe and all that. But but people loved it. Kids loved it. They're making another one. There are some great sequences, like the Prowler was great. The way they designed him and the way, he moved and the way he looked. And I would love to see like, a new kind of production workflow where you would take like some drawing and make them come to life with animation in a way that we don't really see today. Animation is very expensive. Cell animation is very expensive. Computer animation is, the whole Pixar thing. Into the Spider-Verse was a little bit experimental. You don't see too many movies like that. But I would love to see Doctor Strange and Thor. Right? Imagine a computer that could do, Jack Kirby art, right? But you have people wearing suits with the little sensors on them, and they're going through their paces, and they're turning it into, yeah, because they can do this. We have
Yeah, yeah.
cartoon filters, we have the ability to do it on the fly. All we need to do is package it, with all your backgrounds and get a good story, and then, bring you through like different angles and, perspectives. So that's where I'd like to see things go. And this real live action thing is great. This is something very, very different. They say nothing in Hollywood has ever dominated like the Marvel Cinematic Universe to have, you know, out of the top, 10 movies every year to be dominated by these superhero movies. It's unheard of. And they've kept it going now for years, ever since the first Iron Man. It's been just solid. That
So
was
what
the
I'm waiting for, this is what I'm waiting for. Um, and if anybody is listening to this, help me find where this is happening, is independent superhero movie and television. So with the cost of production, definitely making television and stuff like that. Um, you know, you on a down low budget. Horror has always been able to be the access point that young directors and stuff can get into, because you take a bunch of people, you put them in a cabin in the woods, and you shoot it, with a pretty damn good story and such. I just get really curious to see if there'll be a repeat that we experienced when it comes to the independence, putting together, uh, the independent versions of these superheroes, and because that I think is really where, well, hello,
Yep.
that'll be really where things start getting more interesting, um in my own way of just seeing things, because then Turbo Pit Fighter would have a chance,
Yeah. I
because
mean,
the
what
second
what
easiest
what you're
movie the
bringing up
second
too,
easiest movie yeah.
what you're bringing up too in this discussion is that Disney is a gatekeeper. Marvel is a huge
Yep.
company,
Yep.
and
Yep.
Disney is a gatekeeper. Now, Disney is doing a pretty good job,
Yeah.
by and large, of taking these characters that they bought and making a lot of money off it, and, turning it into profit for shareholders. Um, they're doing incredible, actually. um, I mean, when Guardian of the Galaxy came out and they showed, that they could take throwaway characters and make a blockbuster. that people are clamoring for more, it just shows that the comics are full of these potential movies, and franchises, and all they need is like a creative team to come along and say, "Hey, I'll do this," stake me a budget, and I'll deliver, and then put the thing out. So I think we need creators to step into that space, but then it's all Marvel, it's all these licensed characters. You're all working for the big man, and when can somebody else score? And that brings you to a very, very complex discussion about how Disney has paid to keep all other studios down,
Mhm.
and people might not even know the extent of it, but um, I spoke to an animator who was South American, and he said what Disney does in the U.S. is basically they'll pay a distributor not to distribute their
Yeah.
competition, and
Yep.
wherever possible, they'll just buy the whole franchise. Like, they bought the Muppets, they bought, Winnie the Pooh, they buy everything. They bought Baby Einstein, they'll buy everything. But in other countries, they don't have like these antitrust laws. There's it's just the Wild West, and so they they put people out of business. They don't want anybody horning in on their racket, in these other countries. And it all depends what country, and who the licensee is, and how crooked they are. But he was telling me that independent animation studios have a lot to fear. I mean, I don't know. This is 15, 20 years ago, but they have a lot to fear from Disney. And this was before they bought Marvel, and they became the blockbuster that they are now. So um, I don't know if they've gotten a little more accepting. Maybe they have enough money and they can let like All Dogs Go to Heaven part 2, 3 come out without putting them out of business. Or like whatever other studio. There's Iron Giant or whoever. But it's a dog eat dog world, man. This is capitalism, and these are commodities, and these are popular characters are valuable, and there's a lot of money being fought over. There's lawsuits. There's all kinds of shady business practices, and you immediately went to what about the independent creator? How can a kid that's just coming out of art school make a living? Unless you go to work for big bad Disney. So those are all great questions.
Yeah. And that's a perfect place to leave it for
Right.
part two here. Um, yep, we've done it again. This will be part two of a two-parter, and I think episode 7. But I will now start playing the outro music by the Von Ghouls. So
Ba,
go ahead
ba,
and say
ba.
your goodbyes,
Right,
Jake.
show,
Until next
everybody.
time.
See you guys in the next go around.